Hey, my name is Jeff Chandler. I'm sharing this story about my injuries and my recovery journey because honestly, when I was going through the worst parts of dealing with my injuries and my paralysis, well, I was kind of desperate to find some hope somewhere out there in the cloud. I was sure there was some online community where people with my injuries were years past it and just doing awesome, right? Yeah, well, actually not right. The bulk of the information that I found online was more hopeless than hopeful. So I wanted to start putting out content that documented my recovery journey from the day of my injury to now and share with you how I got on my road to recovery. July 9th of 2020 is the day that changed my life forever. Here's a picture of me at 44 years old. I'm a workout nut and I've been in the gym since I was about 14 years old, 4 to 5 days a week. I was 178 pounds, 17% body fat, fast, lean, confident. I literally felt like I was 24 years old. And then in a microsecond, my entire world changed. I run a construction company with my family. It's called Valor Exteriors, valorexteriors.net if you want to check us out. I was on top of a house doing a routine inspection on the roof when the unthinkable happened. Now, I've been climbing houses and doing construction for over 20 years without any accidents at all, of any kind. I'm usually a very careful person. I was walking up the front slope of a 2-story home when I slipped on a patch of algae on the roof, lost my footing, fell face down on the shingles, began to slide down the roof. Everything went into a blur, but one thing was clear in my mind. I knew that I was going to fall off of this roof. Terrifying. I fell 2 stories onto concrete on the driveway below, and I hit the ground, and I was disoriented. I was like, what happened? I had this sense that if I could get into the truck and go home and rest, I'd probably feel better in a few hours, right? You go into that fight or flight mode. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, well, as fast as I jumped up and started to walk to my truck, I fell flat on my face again. I found out real quick that you can't walk when you've broken your pelvis in half, broken your spine, shattered your tailbone, broken all the ribs on the left side of your body, and broken your right shoulder. Yeah, you're not going anywhere but back down. The homeowners heard the commotion. They came running outside to check on me. The wife brought a pillow from the couch, tried to make me a little bit more comfortable. I noticed I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. It was kind of strange, but it didn't really register at that time. Everything was just kind of a blur. I thought I have to call my wife. So I called my wife. I said, honey, I fell off a roof. I think I broke my leg or something. The homeowners have called 911, so I'm going to give them my phone, give them my truck keys, and they're going to meet you at the hospital. While I was talking to her, I was feeling in my body, and I started realizing that I was swelling up like a balloon from my entire midsection down. I fought to keep my cool, reassured my wife that I was okay, and I told her I'd see her at the hospital. I got off the phone, I handed the homeowner my phone, I handed him my keys. He started looking at me, and he was shaking his head. He was like, oh man, you don't look good at all. No, you're turning white, man. You're turning so pale. And I was like, bro, I'm going to need you to stop talking to me like that. I yelled at him. I was like, this is not helping me right now. And his wife got down on the ground beside me, and she said, hey, can I pray for you? I said, yes, please. And then I asked her if she would take off my boots. She looked kind of confused, and I showed her how my legs, my midsection were swelling. And I knew that soon my feet would begin to swell. They'd be too swollen to get my boots off. I still felt no pain at this point. I was totally in shock. It was very weird. She removed my boots and set them on the ground beside me. While we were working to get my boots off, I could hear the ambulance coming in the background. I said, man, they didn't waste any time. I kind of chuckled, and the homeowner was like, how can you be so calm right now? And I really didn't know. I just felt a peace come over me in that moment. As my body continued to swell bigger and bigger, I started to freak out a little bit. Inside, I was like wondering if I was bleeding out internally. I didn't really know what was going on. I was wondering if I might pass away right here, spend my last few moments on earth, lying in a client's driveway. Aid car arrived, and a two-man team flew into a whirlwind of action, checking my vitals, simultaneously scooped me up like a pancake onto this gurney thing, and they hoisted me into the back of the ambulance. A young man rode in the back of the aid car with me to keep an eye on my vitals. As we drove away, the shock began to wear off, and I started to feel a hint of the broken state that I was in. I started groaning, and I noticed that there were no sirens, and we were stopping at every stop sign and traffic signal along the way. As my pain got worse, I looked up at the guy, and I was like, "Hey, where are all the lights and the sirens? Why do we keep stopping at lights, and why are we stopping at stop signs? I'm pretty sure I have internal bleeding. Look how much I'm swelling." And the young guy looked at me and he said, "Oh, no, Mr. Chandler, you are good. If you had internal bleeding, your blood pressure would be all out of whack. And, well, look right here. It's within normal range, so you're not emergent." So, not emergent is good. That brought me a little bit of peace, but it quickly passed as the pain began to wash over me in waves, the most intense and agonizing pain that I'd ever felt before. It was about a 10-minute drive to the hospital, but it felt so long. We arrived, and they quickly popped open the doors, and right on the other side of those ambulance doors was my wife. And she was standing there, just in shock, like a deer in headlights, just looking at me. I said, "I'm okay, sweetie." I tried to encourage her, touched her hand, and that was about all I got to say. They quickly took me inside and triaged me with a handful of other broken folks. There was an older guy named Smith next to me who was dying of cancer, gunshot victim on the other side of him. There were a couple of others that I was aware of. This was during the height of COVID. Literally everything was getting shut down, so my wife wasn't allowed to come inside and see me because of COVID protocols. And I was alone in a triage, and the pain began just to overwhelm me. I've never felt pain like this before. Unimaginable, inexplicable suffering is the best description that I can give how I was feeling at the time. At one point I was crying so much and begging to be put to sleep that the tech who was trying to do my x-rays, he started crying and began to freak out a little bit. Then the x-ray machine broke, of course, and I was laying on this metal table for probably like 5 minutes, but it felt like 3 hours. I couldn't figure out why nobody was hitting me up with some pain meds or something at this point, but they didn't. They were trying to figure out what was wrong with my body, and once they counted all 11 of my breaks in my pelvis, spine, ribs, shoulder, tailbone, they decided that I was indeed jacked up, and they took me to ICU. They didn't tell me this at first, but they didn't know if I was going to live. They started hitting me with everything that they had: morphine, Dilaudid, Percocet. And once they dulled the pain, they started bringing in group of doctors. It was like 10 of them or so. I was like, wow, what's going on with me? They started telling me everything that was going on, showing me the x-rays and the MRIs, showing me the scans and all the pictures on my crushed bones. It was surreal. My neurologist came in, kind of unceremoniously told me he didn't know if I'd ever walk again, but he was going to do everything that he could in the upcoming surgeries. One surgery to rebuild the front of my pelvis, and the other surgery to rebuild my spine, my tailbone, and the back side of my pelvis. 1 week of recovery following those surgeries in the ICU, and then the next few weeks I spent on the surgical floor in the rehab. I never felt so alone. Nothing working from the waist down, just nothing. No bladder, bowel function, no movement, just stillness and crazy pain. My orthopedic surgeon was a ray of light in the middle of all of this. He came in my room the day after my surgery, clapping his hands and smiling, saying, "Congratulations, you win." He made me smile for the first time in a few days. And I was like, "What did I win?" He said, "You win the prize for the most broken person on the surgical floor. And you win the prize for the most pain ever experienced, probably by anybody else in your family." I laughed and I told him, I was like, "Look, man, my wife's given birth 6 times. Cakewalk," he said. "Compared to the pain that you've been feeling, you win." I laughed, not really a prize that I ever wanted to win, but hey, sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying. He would come in every day from then on and encourage me. He would tell me this. He'd say, "What's good today, Jeff?" If I started to gripe about anything, he'd stop me and he'd say, nah, man, I want you to tell me what's good. He always forced me to tell him something good that was happening in my body in the midst of all this awfulness. And I started to realize that that was going to be a major key of my recovery journey, keeping my eyes on the good. I'm 3 years into my journey. I'm walking again, even jogging on the treadmill almost daily. I've been fighting so hard to get here. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm never going to stop fighting until I get back to where I want to be, until I'm satisfied with my level of recovery. And that's why I'm here on this channel. That's what I want to do for you. I'm going to look at you right now through this camera as you're watching on the internet. You're in the cloud looking for hope, and I'm going to look at you in that ICU bed. Multiple surgeries, can't move limbs that you used to be able to move just a few minutes ago. I see you. I feel you right where you are. Everything might feel bad in this moment, but I want you to tell me what's good. And every moment of every day going forward, I want you to focus on what's good. Focus on what you want, where you want to be again. When you envision future you, make it good on your road to recovery. See you in the next episode.